Thank you for attending our 8 millionth virtual tasting or eighth. I'm not sure which one it is. And like I said, we have people here from Miami up a little bit to North Carolina. Yep. The majority of you are New Jerseyans, and then we go up to New Hampshire. So I'm happy to see everyone. So thank you for joining us. And I'm not even going to do any introductions. I'm just going to welcome Mike from Penelope Bourbon, and I'm going to let him tell the story. I have one rule, well, two rules. If you have questions, Mike says it's okay to just ask, or you can put stuff in the chat. And as always, I'm going to put my cell phone number in the chat, and I want everybody to send me pictures of your setup and you enjoying the Penelope. Okay. So go ahead, Mike.
All right. Well, thank you. No, I appreciate everyone letting me join tonight. And yeah, no, this is exciting. I'm happy to be here. And I don't know how I think I saw we got some folks that are obviously very into bourbon, but like what's everyone's kind of like a pulse check on how are folks kind of more novices or beginners in bourbon, or is it everyone's tried a kind of a mix match of different types of people on their bourbon journey, which is totally fine. This is going to be great. And honestly, the expressions that we're going to walk through, it's kind of got this, you know, there's kind of what we kind of almost refer to as our beginner bourbon. There's like kind of more of a complexer bourbon, and then you kind of get into more of the expert stuff in terms of the barrel strength. But you know, we're based in New Jersey. You know, Penelope's actually my 2.5-year-old daughter. That's how I came up with the name. She's going to be going to bed soon, so you're probably going to hear her in about T-3 minutes. But you know, and honestly, I just was a whiskey drinker kind of when I just growing up. Oh, you know, obviously older than 21, but I you know, really over the past 10 years, I think I always loved whiskey. And you know, my wife and I, we were trying to have kids for a while. And we always said we loved that name, Penelope. If we had a girl, we were going to name her that. And when we found out, I don't know, I had all these mixed emotions, like just things going on, just all these changes kind of happening. And I just had a light bulb went off. I just thought Penelope Bourbon had a really nice ring to it. And if you think about the world of just whiskey in general, it's very, just a lot of like guns, dip, man, you know, it's just very masculine in terms of the branding. So I just thought I had a different kind of, just a different kind of riff on the whole kind of space in general. And, you know, that was kind of how it started. I started this business 3 years ago. And as David knows, David's our partner here in New Jersey, and I started just selling it from my car. And so I'll kind of walk you through how I kind of started it and some of the intricacies, but that was really the kind of piece that was always stuck to us. I mean, started 3 years ago. We started selling our first product in, I think it was the summer of 2019. And here we are today. And we're in about 17 states today. So continually just kind of keeping growing. And, you know, I think there's some folks that are starting to really like our products, which is great. So the bourbons that you all have, we've got a couple here. I know there's 3 different ones. I'll kind of walk through each of them. But as Stacy said, please, if there's any questions, like just feel free to ask me. I'll kind of share some tips and tricks of the trade that I've learned over the past couple of years in terms of like how you kind of pick up on the aroma of whiskey, how you kind of pull some flavor on your palate, and some of the things that we look for when we're creating our products. But really our original product, that the first product we ever had to date, was our straight bourbon whiskey. This is a 4-grain. And so for folks that aren't necessarily aware with actually what technically is bourbon, so bourbon, you know, it starts out at the highest level. It's a whiskey. So if you think about spirits, it starts with whiskey. Underneath whiskey, you get things like Scotch. Now, Scotch is coming out of Scotland. There's requirements around what classifies it as Scotch. But in that umbrella, there's bourbon. And what makes bourbon so unique, especially to the US, is that it can only be made in the US. And so one of the things that a lot of people don't realize, I get asked this all the time, everyone thinks that bourbon has to be made in Kentucky. And that's more of a marketing thing. And there's great bourbon in Kentucky, don't get me wrong. But really bourbon is a US based product. So just within the states plus Alaska, Hawaii. And some of the other things about bourbon that make it a little bit different than, say, Scotch is the grains that are used in creating bourbon. So why bourbon notoriously has a little bit of a sweeter profile is because the mash bill of this product, which is basically the recipe. It's, you know, what are the components of it? It has to have over 51% corn. And so in order to be bourbon, it's got to be made in the US. The corn component has to be greater than 51%. And then there's some other kind of nuances around barrel entry and using new American oak wood to age it. But that's kind of what the basis of bourbon is. I'm not sure if everyone knew that. I figured I'd just kind of share that just as a little fun fact. And so with this, I mean, what I always tend to do with a lot of these tastings, I like to get people to try it right off the bat. I'll kind of walk you through the story. But if you guys want to take a sip of our first particular one, this is our 4-grain. Now, there's a number of ways you could sip whiskey. I always tell folks, drink it the way that you like to drink it. There is no right or wrong answer. You know, some folks will drink it neat, you know, without any ice. Some folks will put ice in it, like maybe 1 rock or maybe 5, or fill the whole glass up. Some people put droplets of water in it. No matter how or some people mix it. So if you wanted to mix it with like lemonade or, you know, seltzer and lemon juice, I mean, that's totally fine as well too. So I always tell people, enjoy it how you like to enjoy it. That's the best way to do it. And so that's kind of the idea. But one thing about this particular product, and this kind of goes back to when we first started the company, was, you know, I always felt that in the world of whiskey, it's a never-ending battle to get people just want higher and higher proof. And the one thing that I noticed in the market was that there was not many 80 proofs on the market. You know, there's Jim Beam, there's Jack Daniels, kind of at those like bigger levels. But you know, in terms of more of a premium product that was like, you know, mid 30s price point, 80 proof that had kind of a unique flavor profile, there really wasn't much out there other than maybe Basil Hayden, which has been around for forever. And now, you know, from my perspective, I thought that this could be a really great, like, our marketing strategy was to make this like the perfect entry level bourbon. Like this, it's really smooth. It's going to be sweet and smooth on the palate, because you're going to get a lot of that corn and wheat up front. And so that was kind of the original idea, and we created the formula. And that's kind of been our kind of playbook ever since. All of our products actually use that same formula, but we do different variations of it. So yeah, it's kind of like the background on our 4-grain here a little bit. So I'll take a quick sip. But one thing that I always like to do, I always like to give it a nose. Now, when I smell whiskey, one thing I actually leave my mouth open.
Which one's the first one?
It's the just the white label straight bourbon whiskey. It's actually the 80 proof. I don't know if you can see that. Okay.
The straight bourbon.
4-grain.
4-grain. It's yep. At the proof is 80 proof. And one thing I learned this actually just recently, I had no idea, so it was pretty cool. You actually have a more dominant nostril. And so you kind of go back and forth, and you can kind of pick up on some of the oak, some of the vanilla, some of the butterscotch. And when I do that too, that actually helps open up my palate, and I just take it for a ride. David, what are you drinking over there?
I've got barrel strength right now.
Nice. All right. He's going right in for it. He's going right in for the kill.
Go hard or go home.
That's right. And so now if with this one, how we make Penelope, so we actually don't distill our own bourbon. What we do in the world of bourbon, actually one of the most, and actually spirits in general, this is very common. There's large contract distillers, right? And, you know, you think about brands like Tito's, like Tito's isn't making all that vodka out of a small still in that guy's garage. You use custom, you use, you know, large contract distillers that are making, you know, particular products. And for us, I don't come from the whiskey world. I just had an idea. And the first thing I was like, well, I need whiskey if I'm going to have a whiskey company. So I started cold calling around, and there's a really large, very well-known contract distiller in Southern Indiana called Midwest Grain Products, and short for MGP, or long for MGP. So MGP makes some of the best whiskeys in the world. It's very well known. Like if it's MGP whiskey, it's actually excellent. And so what we do to make Penelope that kind of makes it our more us is we create this from blending many different bourbons. So we actually we source these corn bourbons, we source rye bourbon, and we source wheat bourbon. And then what we do is we blend all these together to then create that final product of Penelope. So you might see 4-grain on the label, and how that comes about from corn, wheat, and rye is that malted barley is in all 3 of those mash bills, which is that 4th grain. So just to kind of put some context around it. Not sure. So did everyone have a chance to try this? Very light. And what's interesting about this, so again, a lot of this stuff is stuff that I just learned along the way. So many, if it's a sub 90 proof bottle, what many companies do is they take the bourbon through a process called chill filtration. Chill filtration. So, you know, like anything, like bourbon has a lot of oils and tannins and just a lot of flavor that is residual from being in an oak barrel for, you know, could be 4 years, 5 years, however long it is. And so what a lot of that starts to make the bourbon look a little hazy, almost like I compare it to like, you know, like Honest Tea. You can see like the little tea floating around in there. So what happens with a lot of the larger companies is they want the appearance of the bourbon to look really good on the shelf. So they take it through a process called chill filtration, which basically burns off any sort of that haziness. But by doing so, you're removing a lot of flavor. And I mean, I didn't know what I was doing at the time. I just like, I think at the time they were trying to get me to do chill filtration, and it cost like an extra like $4,000 as part of our supply chain. And I was like, I don't know, I couldn't afford it. So I said no. And as David probably knows too, it turns out that we call this the non-chill filtered. And it turns out that's actually now one of the most popular things that's happening in whiskey is not to chill filter the bourbon, because you're just ripping out some of the best flavor that's a part of it. So you'll probably see that on the back label, non-chill filtered. And it's actually very, very, I think we might be the only 80 proof bourbon that's non-chill filtered, which is why you're still retaining some of that flavor. So it's kind of just interesting just to kind of share a little bit more about that. And yeah, so hopefully everyone had a chance to try this. Now, what's really good that one of our most, I think it's our most popular. I know it's one of my favorite cocktails, especially during the summer, is we call it the Nelly. And all we do is we muddle up some strawberries. We put some of the 4-grain in, and we put some lemonade in, and it is a delicious cocktail. You could also swap out strawberries for blueberries. I think we're a little past blueberry season, but you know, a lot of the citruses will shine through very, very well as a mixing drink. So just another kind of little cocktail that we like to make that's usually pretty popular as well too. Are there any questions so far? Okay, cool. So we'll kind of moving towards our kind of next product. So the next one we have here, this is actually, I heard you guys had 3 cases of this. So this is probably our most sought after product. It's always extremely high demand, and I don't know if it's just because we don't make a lot of it. But this is a one that people really seem to really enjoy just because it's very, very unique. We are the only bourbon that uses these rosé wine oak barrels to use as part of a finishing process. And I'll kind of walk through that in a little bit. But the next one that I'll walk you through is this rosé cast finish at 94 proof. This is actually batch 2 that you all have, I believe, if I remember correctly. We just released this. We probably released it not even about a month ago, if that. So it's very, very new. Now, I don't know, one of the more popular things right now. So, and this was famous for Scotch. So Scotch really kind of came out, especially I think it's Macallan. Macallan, they actually use sherry wine casks as part of their process to creating some of their products. Sure. And, you know, that started to, the notion of taking bourbon and then putting it in maybe a wine cask, a cognac barrel, an Armagnac barrel. Heck, people are doing tequila barrels, you know, the list goes on. That started to get extremely popular because you were really starting to extract some really interesting, amazing flavors. So you're taking that kind of traditional vanilla, maybe butterscotch caramel notes from bourbon, and then you're transferring that over to like a really rich sherry wine. And so when those flavors started to interact, it was actually, they're creating a very good flavor profile. And, you know, for us being that we're new, we always kind of felt like, look, you can't just do the status quo. You got to try something new and different and try to make a splash. And I don't really know anything about wine, to be honest with you, but the, rosé, I guess I found out, is not aged in oak. It's more of a stainless steel process. So finding these barrels was actually kind of a little bit tricky. And it came up, my wife loves rosé. And I was on the phone with someone. She's like, why don't you do a rosé barrel? I was like, yeah, it sounds actually kind of cool. Rosé is popular. So we did find these. We sourced, and actually to this day, that's kind of the issue with this product, is we can only get 12 barrels at a time. We can only get them in January after they dump for the rosé season. And that's it. So, I mean, maybe we're trying to get more for next year, but it is a very hard product to source. But we found that's a small vineyard in southern France. They bring them over here in March. And so what we do is we actually take Penelope bourbon, our blend. So the blend we create, we blend up a bunch of bourbons, and that's Penelope. But instead of just bottling it like that, we go ahead and then put it into these rosé wine casks for, it depends. It's not a set date, but it's usually anywhere from like 90 to 150 days. And once, what you kind of know, you pull samples and you're trying it, and you're like, okay, it's ready to be bottled. And so this is it's 100% Grenache rosé, which is much sweeter. So you're going to get a little bit of that dryness on the palate, but it's just a little bit different, and it's a 94 proof. So it's about 14 points higher than the first offering, our Penelope bourbon, more or less. So that's kind of the background on the rosé cast finish. I'm not sure if anyone had a chance to try it. I'm actually going to pour a glass of it.
So,
and we got the little glass cap.
Oh, I love the glass cap. What is your production for that?
What's the production, like case volume?
Yeah.
This past year is probably 600-700 cases.
And you distribute that to all the states that you're in, or just?
Yeah, and David, earmuffs. I usually do, because I'm still so new to this, so I'm still trying to figure out how you allocate product out to different markets. And I thought the state that I was worried about the most was New Jersey, because I've been here, and there's never a supply issue in New Jersey, but we're in 17 states. Wow. And you got to do right. Like, people ask about the rosé when we first come to market. So what I did is I just took our total yield and kind of divided it by the number of markets we're in and sent it out to everyone equally.
Wow. So you just said you're in 17 different states?
Yeah.
How do you do that?
I have no idea. Like, literally no idea. Virtual tastings, a lot of them. No. Wow.
Can you name all 17 states?
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, I can name all 17 wholesalers I work with. So, I mean, and I consider like upstate New York, Metro New York, we're Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Georgia, Tennessee, Wisconsin, Nebraska, Colorado, Louisiana, Texas.
Wow.
So there's a few others. I mean, yeah, we're in quite a few of them. And we stopped. We're not adding any more markets till probably mid 2022 right now.
Okay, good. So this is a full-time gig for you?
Yeah. It was actually started as just a hobby. Yeah. To be honest with you, I'll be completely honest. So when I didn't know anything about this. So when we did our first run, buying barrels of whiskey from someone like MGP, they expect you to buy hundreds of barrels. That's kind of that's what they do. They just sell a large volume of barrels. And I kind of acted like I was going to buy a lot, but I knew I was only going to buy 4 or 5. But you have to act like you're going to buy a lot. That's the whole thing. So I was kind of like, yeah, looking around, saying things like that. But I told them, I think the big thing was, we knew we were going to make a lot of mistakes in those first couple runs. And we did. We met. Oh, good night, Penelope. Good night, sweetie. We did. And so I remember, so we wanted to do 6 barrels. And what we did is we were selling it from my car in the beginning, just me and my partner, Danny. My wife does a lot of our social media. And there's, to this day, it's only a few of us. And, you know, we'd sell those 6 barrels and then we go and buy 12 barrels. And then we bought 15 and then we bought 30. And, you know, I think you all have batch 7 of our barrel strength in front of you. That batch, you know, that was 140 barrels that we did. So that was a pretty large. So, but it's a very slow, you know, we kind of gradually worked our way up there. And it, you know, and we still take things, we try, and that's why we're slowing down. We want to take our time and make sure we're doing it right. But the number one thing for us is as we grow, the age of our bourbon also increases, which is what we're excited about. So barrel strength, as an example, that's a 4-year product. Next year, all of our barrels are 5 years old. And so, you know, our pricing doesn't change. It's just that's just how it works. As our barrels, as we grow as a company, so do our barrels, which is really nice. So that's something we're excited about.
I'm actually, one of the glasses I'm drinking out of is Cooper River Distillers, who is a now defunct distillery out of Camden, New Jersey. But one of their big things was they did do a lot of bourbons and different whiskeys, but their mainstay was rums, because they could make it quickly and sell that to keep the lights on and the process going. But you just do bourbon. So how did you do with that first little bit to keep the lights on?
Yeah, and honestly, there's a couple of things to that. So vodka, gin, any clear liquid is anything that's basically not being aged is it's more of a good margin, quick. I should be in the vodka business. Everything I do is like 4 or 5 years. It's like this aging thing actually kind of is painful, but that's part of it. No, but so when we started this, we didn't have a facility. So everything we did, we outsourced. And I kind of knew that we're sourcing our bourbon. Yeah, we were doing some blending. I did want to really ingrain myself in getting a partner that was in Kentucky that had a bottling line that I could call home away from home. So I didn't have some of the expenses that say some of the distilleries have in the early beginning. So everything was contracted out, which, had some of its challenges and was also very expensive. So, you work at a much, much lower margin. And what we did over time was, as we grew and started to create more of a sound business, we now have a facility here in New Jersey. We run, our lines are run, and we still bottle a lot in Kentucky, like our 4 grain, our 80 proof, our barrel strength, these larger batches. We do those in Kentucky because those lines are much bigger bottling lines. But some of our specialty products, like the rosé and some of these other things, we actually bottle those out of now our facility in New Jersey. But it took us a while to get there. We have bootstrap this. We don't have any outside investment, so everything we did, we'd have to sell and save towards doing it. So it's been, at times I'd love to have a facility, a tasting room, but we don't even have that permit. We just have a bottling and rectifying permit in New Jersey. But we get a lot of visitors. Anyone's more than welcome to come. We actually get quite a few visitors, and we usually have anywhere from 100 to 140 barrels on hand. So we can sip a lot of whiskey too if you come up. So it's fun. But yeah, that's kind of been us. We've always been a little bit more scrappy, has been our model, and just kind of working hard. Like David knows, we do a lot of in-store tastings, like myself personally, our team, and that's been helpful for us in getting our name out there and get people to try it, which does help. So it's been interesting. So that was the rosé cast finish.
So I don't have a question, but I just want to say that I love the rosé. I love the nose, great. And I love the taste. I'm really impressed with this.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Now. And what's interesting is I pick up on, I'm getting some strawberries. Everyone kind of picks up different things with what they're smelling, but on the aroma and on the palate, I don't know. I do pick up quite a bit, even though rosé is normally pretty dry, which is, I think, interesting.
I have a question.
But
you said when you were waiting for the rosé to age, that you would taste it and pour samples from time to time. What is it that you're looking for? What's the flavor that kind of says this is the tipping point that I need to look for?
Yeah, that's a great question. Now, what's really, and we deal with this a lot because we have a product right now that we're going to be releasing in New Jersey in a bunch of markets soon. It's toasted barrels. And we're doing a lot of toasted right now. And it's the same thing. Now, what happens is, so, because it's going to be ultimately, when I was mentioning this before, we use 12 Grenache rosé barrels, right? And so they're just 12 individual barrels that are all aging, and they're all actually very different. Just like any single barrel of whiskey, those are equally as different. So what we normally do is we kind of have a benchmark. We know it's got to be in there for more than like 60, 70 days, no matter what. Like, it doesn't matter. We'll just keep it in there. And then after that, really what you have to do is we have to pull barrel samples of all 12. And this is actually manageable because it's only 12 barrels. And what we'll do is we'll start creating the blend. So we'll see what it would taste like as a batch. Right? Because eventually we're just going to dump them all into a big tank and then let it sit there for another day or two and then bottle it. And so really, yeah, we'll start to see what it's like as a batch. And, what's interesting about these type of projects, the cast finishes, is that as individual barrels, they're really some of them are just not great. Some of them are unbelievably good and just almost like regular single barrels. But when you batch them together is where you really start to get the balance, which is kind of what we look for. That's kind of what I look for the most, is it balanced? We usually know pretty quickly, like if you put them together and it's, I don't know, maybe it's a little hot or it's a little rough around the edges. It usually just means it just needs maybe another, let's just check it back. I'll check back on it in like 2 weeks. But that's usually how we do it.
Cool. Thank you for that insight. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no, that's a great question.
And now Eric has a question. I feel like a DJ. Eric from New Hampshire. What's your question?
Eric in New Hampshire. And next on Larry King. The rosé, and I'm a complete amateur. Does it tastes a little Scotchy or Irish Bushmills? Is that accurate?
I honestly, I could pick up on that. I think you can get a little single malt for sure. It's put this way, it is definitely different. It's very different than it's not going to be a regular bourbon profile by any means. And everyone's got a different palate. Honestly, everything from food to bourbon to wine, it's very subjective. And and that's what I love about the industry, is that, everyone's palate kind of gravitates towards certain things. And, for this particular one, I can totally, because I'm sipping it now, but I know exactly what you mean. I could totally see that 100%. Absolutely.
I guess it wasn't a question, it was a statement, but thank you.
No, you're right though. I mean, but it's funny. So that's batch 2 of our rosé, batch 1. And that's the other thing, is and that's why we go by batches. They're never going to be the same. They'll always be different. And we ran into this. I didn't know this in the beginning, but with our products, like our 80 proof is meant to be consistent. And this is the hardest product that we make, because it's really hard at our volume to make something consistent, like say a Woodford Reserve or a Basil's. It's just extremely difficult, because every batch of barrels we're working with, I mean, there's some batches that are just not as good as, just like wine, like some are vintage, they're just not as good. And you're like, and you just have to kind of tinker with it. So the 80 proof, our 4-grain, we try to go for a consistent profile. And then everything else is basically more of a batched release. And we kind of just, whatever we're working with, we just want the best flavor to shine through, if that makes sense. And the worst thing, I think, that with the question, I think Eric, you maybe had mentioned it, but with like the rosé, I remember we were fortunate because we only have 12 barrels. We got to use all 12 barrels, but we've had on our first batch of rosé, we had to kick out a barrel. I don't know why. It just like it was like a resin. It just was awful. And so on 12 barrels, you put one that has like a really off profile taste. It's going to throw the whole thing off, especially if it's like 55 gallons. So yeah, that's the idea. But great question or statement. And then the next one we have 2 is our barrel strength. It's the etched glass, I believe you all have. And what number does it say at the bottom? Is it 6, 7, 5?
Some people just have little kits, but
7.
still 7. Okay.
Oh, okay. That's actually the one we like literally just finished it.
Mine looks like travel size Listerine. So
Yeah. That's no, this is our most recent one. So these are batch releases. So I'll kind of walk you through it a little bit, but so this eventually, I'll just go back to our 80 because it helps me tee up some more information about barrel strength and like what we're doing. But so this is going to eventually be a 4-year product. But we're slowly getting there. We're not going to get there overnight because it's very costly just to buy 4-year-old barrels and put out a product at a certain price point. So this is now 3 years, more or less. Next year will be 4-year. And barrel strength, we actually, because it is a more premium product, we wanted to get that up a year. So right now, most of the barrels we use for barrel strength are, let's just for simplicity purposes, say 4 to 5 years. That's usually where barrel strength is. However, next year, like I was saying, all those barrels turn 5. And I think eventually, we're still not too sure, but I think this will eventually cap at a 6 or 7 year product as we get a little bit bigger and some of the barrels start coming back. But so this is a little bit older, and barrel strength. Just so you all know, this is literally it's as close to drinking it from the barrel as it gets. It is. We do not cut it. There's no filtration. We dump it straight out of the barrel. We create our blend. It comes out of the barrel. We blend it, bottle it, and that's basically it. And I'll be honest, barrel strength whiskey, not just us, but like in general, is probably usually the most sought after whiskey because you can proof it down yourselves. A lot of folks like the natural, having something like uncut, unfiltered. And if you wanted to add ice, water, yeah, you can go ahead and do that. And that's at your own discretion, or you could just drink it neat. So barrel strength is something a lot of folks seem to like quite a bit. Let me take a little sip of that, actually. Grab that bottle. Where'd my bottle go? There. I was going to see if I had an open one.
What's the proof on the barrel strength, Michael?
The proof, so this particular batch is 115.2.
Okay.
Now, I mean, I'm kind of accustomed to drinking it. Now, I would say one thing that's interesting. So batch 7, if you all try it. So here's kind of something I could pick up flavor in these particular batches pretty, at least from what I get. Now, I don't know if you all tried it. Now, you might get a little ethanol on the nose, and that's pretty normal for cask strength. It is out of the barrel. So it's going to be somewhat hot. But what you'll notice when you actually take a sip, to me, I get like this almost like charred creme brulee with almost dark chocolate. I don't know if anyone else picks up on dark chocolate, but I get like this brown sugar, dark chocolate note.
It's interesting because I get caramel.
Caramel. Yeah, like it could be a caramel, like I think like a crispy, something like caramel, but like a little riff on it almost. Now, if you take a droplet of water, put a droplet of water in there, it'll completely open it up in the sense that it will actually kill off some of the bad alcohol molecules and release more of the flavor. And I'm talking, it could be a droplet, but put an ice cube in, anything you want. Just if you add any sort of H2O to it, it will release different flavors for sure.
Totally. That is amazing.
Yeah, it definitely changes it.
Everybody do that? I put like a dropper of water in there. John Lanny's looking at me like, why would you do that?
We like it neat.
It's all good.
That's amazing. Just
like
the
it
drop
as
of water that
very
really
nice.
makes a difference in the taste.
And one of the things I think folks, and this was kind of by sheer luck. We didn't know this going into barrel. And by the way, this is batch 7 of our barrel strength. Batch 1 of our barrel strength was like not so smooth and it was a little rough around the edges, to say the least. But with this, what's interesting is when you blend this, it just creates a smooth profile. So I've had a lot of, there's a lot of barrel strength whiskey out there from a lot of different distilleries. And if it's right out of the barrel, and it's not blended. So like a single barrel, it might be a little bit hotter. It might come, you might get more ethanol. But when you blend it and these flavors start to come together, that kind of just naturally smooths it out a little bit, which is kind of interesting. So we didn't know that going into it. It just kind of happened like it was just like a nice plus. Because I do think it drinks lower than its proof, in my opinion, much lower than 115 might suggest. But I also do drink a lot of it, so that's another story.
I did taste the caramel when it was at 115, and then when I put the water in, I had the little hint of chocolate. It was interesting.
It's like just subtle. You get a little subtle kind of hit, like tinker of it. But, and another thing for us, I think because we do, keep in mind all of our products we have, other limited releases, we're still using the same blending formula. So we're still using our corn bourbon, the same corn bourbon, rye bourbon, wheat bourbon. And, I think for us, by staying hyper focused on just those mash bills and blending those, we've kind of started to develop a taste profile that's kind of become ours. And if that makes sense in any way, if you drink a traditional bourbon, could be Jefferson's, Elijah Craig, any of them that are more of the traditional Kentucky bourbons, you're going to get a big caramel kind of punch and blast, and you'll feel that. You'll feel the caramel. Now we're different. That's not kind of our flavor profile for any. You'll get some of that, but it's going to be more nuanced and more kind of grain forward. And I think, that's what some folks kind of appreciate, that since we are sourcing it, we are kind of still creating something that's unique to us, which, a lot of folks that will source bourbon, they'll just put it right in a bottle. That's not nothing wrong with that, but that's might be some reason it's just a little bit different. Did everyone,
So I just made an old fashioned with the 4 grain.
Delicious.
Oh my God, it's amazing.
I need your old fashioned recipe.
I cheated. There's a small company out of Georgia. They make this called Proof. And it's basically, it's your citrus, your simple syrup, your bitters,
it's
all
delicious.
in one.
So
Really?
easy. Really
Yeah,
good.
and all you do is add an ounce of this to 3 ounces of the bourbon,
Delicious.
and you're good.
Really?
They
It's
come in
really-
different flavors. There's the traditional. They got black walnut. They have a maple bacon. They have an orange. They have all
Really
different
good.
citrus. It's amazing.
I'm gonna check that out. That's cool. I'm actually not good at making old fashions, to be honest
We
with
make
you.
them-
So that's like
There
right in
you
my
go.
wheelhouse.
There you go.
Rich has made some good ones from scratch, but it takes time. When you have like 4 or 5 people over and you don't want to mess with all of that, these proofs are wonderful because you can make 4 drinks at once and everybody's happy. You're not married to the bar
Oh yeah.
at home trying to make drinks all the time and muddling stuff. And
Gets
So
messy. There's stuff
yeah.
everywhere. Yeah. No,
So
I'm
it's
gonna
really
look
great-
at that. That's cool.
You'll really like it because I really enjoy them. And you can control the strength if you could do a little less or a little more.
Oh,
It's
wow.
really, really good. The orange one is delicious. We had it last week. It's really nice. So
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna give it a shot. That's cool.
It's a good
Proof.
cheat.
Yeah, it's
Proof. Yeah,
proof.
totally.
it's a good cheat for sure.
Okay, that's awesome.
I think it's proofsyrup.com, I believe.
Yeah.
Wheat syrup.
Yeah.
Out of Georgia.
So Mike, tell us again, what's the Nelly? Say that again.
Oh, the Nelly. So that's on our website under our cocktails. It's really just a muddled. You could use a strawberry lemonade premix.
Okay.
But it's not. I found it's really good just actually taking a strawberry too, muddling it up, and putting our 4 grain. So it's just a muddled strawberry Penelope 4 grain with just some lemonade. And it is a crowd pleaser. It's especially for folks that don't like bourbon, because you won't pick up the bourbon flavor. But
Okay, Yolanda, you've been quiet. I want to hear what you're thinking. Unmute.
I think you're muted.
She has to unmute. Oh, you're muted. There you go.
Okay.
I think she should.
And Allison, you're next. So
We love them. We think all of them are great and very different. And we haven't been bourbon drinkers, but I'm going to definitely make Steve a Nelly.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, she knows.
good, good, good.
No, I appreciate it. Yeah, thank you.
Very cool.
All right, Allison. Allison, like she said, she was
Right.
texting me. She said she likes the barrel strength.
Yeah, I did. I don't, maybe because I already had the other two before, but no, it's really good. I like it. I don't usually drink it like straight, but I wanted to really just taste it. But yeah, I think it was really good. I'm glad I was able to join. So
Why don't you call one of these to Glory, and then we can.
And hey, Christy and Jill, it's so good to see y'all.
We all graduated high school together, so.
Oh, get out of here.
Just so everybody knows.
Oh, that's funny.
Oh, that's a
Lot
smart
of
one.
Cinnamon people here. All right, the Higgins. I want to hear what the Higgins think.
We like them all, but we were thinking about making the Nelly because we have some strawberries and some blueberries around too. So.
Telling you, we do that. We make the Nelly. We batch it up for tastings and events, and it's it helps, you know, especially because people come in and they're not, maybe they don't want like a small like quarter ounce shot of bourbon at like 1 PM. And so having the Nelly is a helpful trick.
All right, Yolanda, you're unmuted now. Tell us what you think.
I like all three of them, but frankly, my favorite right now is the barrel strength.
Nice.
And I loved it with
We're two behind.
We might have been.
We got to try.
We were two behind. Save the craziest for last.
Everybody got the.
I loved it.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you.
Good, good, good. All right, how about the Morstonians? How about you Morstonians? Joanna, Rich, John, Janet.
I know Rich is managing my communications here, so it's like just, you know, whatever, I'm just a puppet.
I'm managing my own communications.
So we are just catching up. We are just trying the Penelope bourbon, the straight bourbon. We missed that. The other two were yummy. I think the barrel strength is really good, but it packs a wallop. The rose cask we like very much. We want to know why the people with stogies aren't sharing. But no, it's nice. It's very nice.
Oh, thank you.
How about the McGills?
Oh, this is good. I like this one. Okay, guys.
Somebody needs to get up off the couch. I won't ask you guys to get up off the couch.
They're doing the wave.
Yeah, I love it. So yeah, the McGills and the Flemings are like blocks away from each other.
Good stuff. All right.
Very good. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Stace.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
Todd, how about you and your guest?
I'm going to say the second one. I enjoyed the most, the rose cask.
Yeah, I would agree. The rose or rose cask, I thought had the most hints of different flavors in it. I like that. Anything from like a fruity flavor, herbal flavor to almost a butterscotch. Really enjoyed that.
Yeah,
it's really nice with the cigar.
More key lime pies.
I know.
Glad we can make it
Dude,
jealous.
these do pair well
we
with cigars.
cheated. We got together. Yeah. We cheated. We got together last weekend and started our tasting early.
No, but they do pair like
We
that's
knew what we liked, and
that's cool. But I'm not. I got where we do a lot with different cigar clubs. It's a big, you know, obviously the cigar pairings is a big piece to things that we do. And it's pretty cool how the cigar does add a lot of different flavor. It's really just, because I never was a big cigar smoker really. And then I started having cigars more and more just recently, but it it changes on, I mean, your palate goes through some different things, which I think is cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, thank you guys.
And we had some like dark chocolate. We had some dark chocolate like cake that our wives made here. And actually it was very nice with it.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Interesting. Yeah.
I'm going to mute us.
You're not muted.
Yeah, that's cool. We did, it's funny with, so even on the barrel strength, I've had, I was at a tasting, and this was actually in Red Bank. This was not too long ago, but they had this like, and I don't even know the name of it, but I had my bourbon, but then they had actually this like, it was like it was like an aged cheddar cheese. And I've never thought cheese and bourbon would go together, but I don't know if it's just this particular cheese, but an aged cheddar cheese, I remember it was aged. That's the only thing but it was unbelievable what it did when I would take a sip of the bourbon or eat the cheese and then take a sip. It was really something interesting. So just, I'm not, I don't have too many pairing options other than ice cubes and droplets of water, but yeah, dark chocolates, candies, cigars and cheese are usually the go-to.
That's funny that you say that, because I, down at the Lanny's, Wave Lanny's, I dropped off the bottles to her. We met at the grocery store today, and I dropped off her, and we were talking in the grocery store, and she yells to me at the end of the aisle, "What foods go with bourbon?" And people started answering us like in the
Stacy, I looked it up because I Google everything.
Yeah.
We had dark chocolate.
Yep.
And we had an aged cheddar, and both are really amazing. They also recommended buttered pecans, but I couldn't find those today. So.
Oh, interesting.
But the dark chocolate, especially with the barrel.
Yes.
That was amazing.
Well, so the barrel strength, so on batch 5, when we did batch 5 of our barrel strength, it was very, I mean, the flavor profile that comes to mind was orange zest. Like it was orange, citrus orange on that mid palate note. And it actually was like the perfect flavor profile to make the best old fashioned, because you were just getting that natural orange flavor. Now batch 6 and even batch 7, I think more so batch 7, less batch 6. It was, and that's because on batch 5, it was very wheat. The wheat was a very good batch, which is more floral and sweet. But on batch 7, this was a much heavier rye blend. So the rye barrels were really, really good. And rye is going to give off more of those spicier notes and less floral. And so I kind of think that that dark kind of chocolate, some of that like peppery spice is coming from the blend that we did with this. It was a higher rye blend. I think that, if I had to guess, that's probably where it's coming from.
I also picked up some dried apricots, and that tasted really good with the rosé cast.
Interesting. That's actually a really good idea.
Very nice. That's smart.
I know I gotta up my game on the pairing side, because I actually got a lot of people that ask me. And I'm like, I actually used to say like M&Ms. That was like my go-to thing forever. I'd always be like, I get M&Ms, even the peanut butter ones are really good. But no, that's like that sounds much cooler when you say dried apricots. Just like that's a little bit more. That's better.
Fancy, very fancy. I sent the pictures to Stacy.
So Michael, we have a couple questions. So John, my husband, would love to know if you know anything about the distillation columns that were used, because he's an engineer and he does this for people. But I guess my question is number one, were you guys at Whiskey Fest at Golden Nugget like 2 years ago? The last one they had?
Oh my gosh, we were.
Yes.
I didn't go to it. I didn't do it, but it was like in November.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. It's right after Thanksgiving or right before. Yeah. So
David, can we do that again this year? David's our wholesaler in New Jersey, and they're the ones that got us into Whiskey Fest at the Golden Nugget.
Because
I'm not sure if they're having it yet. I'll find that out for you though.
Oh, we would love to know, because we haven't heard anything, because we've done that like 8 or 9 years now. Like it's a great event.
And I forgot about that one too.
Yeah.
Right.
And I guess, are you doing any New Jersey or local? tastings or?
Yes, we're doing a bunch. Because now everyone's back. So there's so many events. I think we've got, we have like a queue in New Jersey. I know we're doing a few up in Bergen County. We're doing Whiskey Fest, New York.
November 11th.
Oh, down in the Philadelphia area, we actually have a few. So we're doing the American Whiskey Convention, September 10th in Philadelphia. We're doing the Philadelphia Magazine. There's a Philadelphia Magazine Whiskey and Fine Spirits Festival through, I think that's the PLCB that is hosting it. That's in October. And then we always are doing, and we're always there's always in-store tastings that we're doing. But from a large event perspective, that was right. That would be a perfect one if they are doing it. That's a good, I'll follow up on that. Yeah. Cause I'd love to go back to that one. And yeah, the Golden
It was a nice event. It was really well executed, but anyway, we enjoyed the heck out of this. This was a lot of fun. It was just nice. And we certainly learned a lot, but we're neat people. We like it just neat.
Yeah, no, me too. I mean, that's usually how I drink it. And honestly, we get people, we have an open invite. If anyone wants to come to our facility, we're in Roselle, New Jersey. It's right off the Parkway. We get a lot of folks come by. It's just more, it's not like,
I was born in Roselle, New Jersey.
Oh, I didn't see who that was. Oh, we're really nice.
444 Chestnut Street. Where are you guys?
We're on 12th Ave, 288 12th. On the it's like the industrial circle. Over there's a Wawa.
What is it? Just a retail facility?
Yeah, no, it's actually great. It's been a good spot for us.
Everything is. Isn't
near
everything near the Wawa?
That's right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But there really is. The Wawa's within walking distance. It's like 10 feet from our place.
Do you blend there, or is that where you blend and store?
No, well, we warehouse most of our we have a lot of different, the warehouses, we just have warehouse contracts with different folks, but we do rack barrels for sure. We have a lot of barrels there. In that facility, we have these products, like you see the black labels, like these are what we're working on now. So these are just things we're working. These are we basically, when we sip through barrels and we get like just exceptional barrels, like our really, really good ones, we'll bring them back and we do very small batch. We'll do very small batch blends. So like the barrel strength batch 7, this 100 and some odd barrels. So you kind of lose a little control of your blend when you have that many. And so one of the things that we like to do in New Jersey on our own with our tanks is we can blend 5, 6, 7 barrels and completely control we have 3 things we like to look for. We really like to, my biggest things, I like to have a good nose. I want to smell. I want some aromatics for sure. I think it just sets the mindset up to like, you're going to go into the sip really nice. So, you can control it where you can tinker with the blend, where you can have a really nice nose. You might have a great nose, but maybe you miss the palate, but then you throttle it and now you got a nose and you got a great palate, like something rich and a little bit flavorful. And then we always like to have a good finish. I mean, those are like the 3 things we look for when we're blending is nose, palate, finish.
So how do we get the black label? What was that?
Yeah, these
I was just about to ask that, Joe.
Well, so we just started these. So a lot of these are toasted. These are like what we're going to be releasing. Actually, David from Fedway, they're coming to our facility next week to pick a bunch of toasted barrels for the state of New Jersey. And so these toasted barrels are kind of fun because, well, like the rosé gives off more, strawberries and just Grenache rosé. The toasted barrels are really cool because the toast gives off a lot of rich vanilla. So they're really, really, to me, I like them because it's like barrel strength with this really kind of influence of a strong vanilla flavor. It's almost like roast. It's like marshmallows.
That'll be good for fall.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So we've been ramping up our facility for the holiday. This is really for the fall and winter. We're going to be rolling these out. And so we do those in-house. It's it's a slower process. We only have like a 6-bottle filler. Everything's handwritten, so we can like handwrite on everything. But it's nice to do it in-house. It's just baby steps. Like I said, we were like, we didn't, you know, this is only still our second full year in business. So I think for us to be able to have a line and it's done correctly, and we can actually do the tax reporting correctly to the government. I mean, which is actually really complicated. I didn't realize, I didn't know what I was getting into with all that, but it's been so we're not happy to have this part of it done. But we should start distilling gin though. Whoever brought gin up, not a bad idea. I like gin.
Clear. Do a gin style Belgian, like they do like a citrus gin over there. They do I've been trying to get Stacy to source Belgian gin for ever.
I love gin. I mean, I really like gin a lot.
Go to Belgium and there's the northern part of Belgium. They probably have 50 different distillers, and they all have their own unique little thing, and the stuff is amazing.
Oh, wow. That sounds really good. Yeah. What other tastings do you guys all do? Is it just whiskeys, wine, everything across the board?
We've done a few wine and beers and
sparkles.
Oh, we did a sparkling. Yeah. What did we do last time? I can't remember. We did.
You did the olive oil too.
Yeah,
that wasn't Stacy's business, though, but yeah.
We did a oh wait.
Oh, you're
bouncing back here. Yikes. We did a beer tasting with food a couple of months ago, which was interesting. What did we just do before the bourbon? We did another.
The gold check.
We did, yeah, we've done a couple of wine ones. Oh God, I can't even remember. But Eric has his hand up again. Go ahead, Eric.
Oh, sure.
Eric. So several years ago, Crown Royal made a maple, and it was perfect. It wasn't too sweet, and every other maple whiskey tastes like candy. So if you're thinking of stuff down the road, maple bourbon is my request.
Now, was it maple flavored, or was it maple they had maple barrels? Because that's a big difference.
It had a hint. No, it was maple flavored, but it was just enough.
Interesting.
I mean, the Jim Beam maple and the Vermont maple and the others, they all taste sicky sweet. The Crown Royal maple was perfect, and they don't make it anymore.
Yeah.
So there's a distillery in New York called Taconic, and I know them very well. They make a double maple barrel bourbon, and it's actually very good. So I've been kind of interested in this. The problem is some of the regulations in New Jersey doesn't allow us to some things that we wanted to do from our facility. But what we are doing, one project we have, we're probably not going to release it till next year, is we're sourcing honey from a local honey farm in New Jersey. And it's a pretty decent amount, probably buying 1,000 pounds of honey. And I'm actually going to fill up our used bourbon barrels I'm going to fill them up to the top too, all 53 gallons. And we're going to let the honey sit in the barrel for 2 months. And then what we're going to do is we're going to release the honey and actually give it back to this honey producer. They'll package it and make a bourbon honey with it. And then once the honey is out of our barrels, but it's kind of soaked into the wood, just like our rosé, we're putting our bourbon in there, and our bourbon will sit in there for about 3 to 4 months. And some of these products they're just very, very, very popular. I don't know how it's going to taste though. So this is our first go at it. So it could, but I think we've got a good plan. We're actually probably going to start it in the next 3 or 4 weeks.
John Meyer Distillers in the Finger Lakes does a really nice honey whiskey, because it's the same thing Eric was talking about. It's very natural and good product, and it's not too sweet, which a lot of the commercial products are really, too sweet. But so, yeah, there's a lot of good distillers up there.
Oh yeah. My wife is from Corning, New York. My in-laws live in Keuka Lake.
Get out.
We do a lot of, we went up there not too long ago, and I did tastings in Canandaigua and stuff like that.
Oh, we have a little place on Seneca. We love it up there. There's a ton of stuff we've learned from up there. Yeah.
They got
great winery
distillery.
Great wine. I
Yeah,
had my
so
brother.
Finger Lakes Distilling, John Meyer, there's a number of really good ones.
Like very good ones. Yeah. No, it's awesome up there. I love it.
I'm watching Jack in Harrisburg set himself on fire now. So now like everybody's had a little too much to drink and Jack's setting himself on fire. All right. Any other questions? Does anybody have any other questions?
It's not a question.
It's not a question. Go ahead, Tom.
Go ahead, Ernie.
We ended up making we made a whole batch of popcorn that went great with this. I put some sour cream and onion flavoring on it, and it paired really well with these.
Really? I should be writing this down, actually.
I think that's funny. I have a customer that he used to do popcorn and champagne all the time, but popcorn and bourbon. There you go.
All right.
That's good. I like it.
Real good.
Buttered popcorn?
Any popcorn.
Any popcorn.
Very good.
We can get more from you, right? Plain with, we put sour cream and onion on it, but it works well. Sour cream and onion.
Love it. I love it. That's great.
But thank you, Michael. This was fabulous.
Yeah, no, thank you guys so much. This is fun. I mean, I appreciate you all just even considering us and trying our products and everything like that. And open invite if anyone does want to come up. My email is just michael@penelopebourbon.com. Feel free to email us. We come by at any time. You're welcome to. So we'd love to meet in person. But thank you.
So
and
much.
David, thanks for also helping set that up too.
Thank you, David.
Yeah, so my husband has moved on from the tasting glass to a bigger glass of the barrel.
Please tell me it's not a pint glass.
Very good.
That's awesome. Well, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Yes, and if
Blended all three, so.
I have a
Yeah,
few
we blended
photos.
all three. They were very nice.
There you go.
Thank you.
It's a good idea, actually.
Thank you.
And we're going to patent the word chiltration. Chiltration is our new word.
Oh, yeah. I have a couple bottles left of the rosé. If anybody wants it, let me know.
Awesome.
I want to see Grandma.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks all. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Everybody
nice
have a
weekend.
great night.
Thank you.
Have a great weekend.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Stacy.
Bye,
Thank you,
Stacy.
Michael.
It was great seeing you.
Great to see everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, Fleming.